So my book was Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk, published in 1996. It's about two guys, a nameless narrator and Tyler Durden, who create an underground fight club where they go to fight each other just so that they can feel better about life. And that spirals out of control into a group called Project Mayhem, where they try to pretty much tear down civilization. And so the first technique I used to analyze the book was psychoanalytical. And the first question is, how symbolic is the imagery in the work? And so the first symbol that I analyzed, or the first image that I analyzed, was soap, which is the cover image of the book. And so soap cleanses, and so does Project Mayhem. Project Mayhem, the front for Project Mayhem, the way that they make their money to fund everything they do is by making soap. They make soap and they sell it, but it's not normal soap. It's soap that they make out of dead people's bodies and from the fat of rich people. And so rich people are essentially buying their own fat from Project Mayhem so that Project Mayhem is able to cleanse the world of civilization. So they're selling soap in two ways: through their actions, which kind of cleanse the world of consumerism and everything that they don't like, and then it's also selling normal soap. And then the other thing is, at one point they make soap out of Tyler Durden's girlfriend's mother. And so that's kind of saying that only in death things are cleansed. Another symbol in the book was breasts. The first example of breasts I found in the book was of Big Bob. He was a former bodybuilder, and it says that in the book that Bob it says a lot of bodybuilders shooting too much testosterone would get what they call bitch tits. So what these bitch tits are symbolic of is kind of the masculinity of Bob and how he goes to a testicular cancer clinic because the testosterone caused that. And it's also kind of critical of his masculinity, the bodybuilder culture, and sexuality in general. The genre of the book is satire, and it's mostly satirizing social order and consumerism. And then the last or second mention of breasts in the book is the narrator's grandmother, who has a mastectomy, and as they're walking out the hospital, his grandpa says, "Oh, I feel so lopsided," because he's carrying her bag. And the grandma comments, "You feel lopsided," and she just had a partial mastectomy. And what this is kind of saying is that sexuality is a burden. And this is satiring consumerism, because consumerism is very sexually based, and it's almost the entire basis of consumerism. And it's saying that sexuality and consumerism are a burden. My second question with the psychoanalytical theory is, does the hero embark on a journey in either a physical or spiritual sense? And the journey of the narrator in this book, he's pretty much the hero, is to live and feel alive and see how far they can take things. In the book, he has insomnia and his life is terrible. He works as an insurance claims agent, and he says, "My whole life I just take A times B times and C, and if C is greater than the cost of a recall, then I issue a recall." And so that's just, his whole life is just this formula. He says his life is like a copy of a copy of a copy because of his insomnia. But then at the end, when they have Project Mayhem, things are going crazy. And Big Bob, who was like one of his first friends, he's kind of like, in the beginning, he meets him at a testicular cancer clinic. And even though he doesn't have testicular cancer, he just goes to different clinics just because he likes to go there, and he just likes to see how it feels to like feel alive. It makes him feel more alive when he goes. And Big Bob ends up joining Fight Club, and he also ends up joining Project Mayhem. And when he joins Project Mayhem, he goes on a mission and he gets shot. It says that in the book, 1 minute Robert Paulson, Bob, was the warm center of life that the world crowded around. And the next moment, Robert Paulson was an object. After the police shot, the amazing miracle of death. And so Bob gets shot by the police in the name of this crazy anti-consumerism organization. And it kind of brings up the question of who kills Big Bob. Is it the police and the order, or is it Project Mayhem who led him to be there in the first place? And is it the chaos that kills him? And you could really go either way. I think the author is trying to say, Chuck Palahniuk is trying to say that it's actually chaos that kills him. It's not the consumerism that kills him. It's not really the social order that kills him. It's actually the chaos caused by this almost terrorist organization. And then the last thing is at the beginning and end of the book, it's a story frame. The narrator, he has a gun in his mouth, and the person holding that gun in his mouth is Tyler Durden, his best friend. And so they're on top of an explosion-packed building. Tyler plans to blow up the building and have the building collapse onto a nearby museum. And so in order to stop Tyler, the narrator has to pull the trigger, and his journey to be alive, he created Fight Club so he could feel alive, it ultimately results in his death. And so the next technique or criticism I used was the postmodern criticism. And my first question was, how does the author or character omit, change, or reconstruct memory and identity? So about 80% of the way through the book, the author reveals to us that Tyler Durden isn't actually a real person. He reveals that Tyler and the narrator are the exact same person. He reveals that when the narrator is asleep, he becomes Tyler Durden, who's the head of Project Mayhem, and he's the one who's killing people, he's the one who leads the Fight Club, and he's the one who pretty much is doing everything. And when he's awake, he's just that insurance claims agent, and he's just the one who reads the formula and applies it to car recalls. It makes him feel alive. The club origin is in a parking lot where Tyler and the narrator are in a parking lot, and Tyler just says to the narrator, "Punch me as hard as you can. I want to feel what it feels like to get punched." And so at the beach is where they meet. It's not how they get to the beach is never explained. And Tyler is making a sundial inside of a hand. And what this is symbolic of is time is in the palm of Tyler's hand. He's in control. The sundial is in the hand. And that's the character reconstructing his memory into something, or his identity into something where he's in control of everything. And then the other way that his reconstructed identity, he reconstructs his identity to deal with his problems. His normal self is too coward to do anything. He says he wants out of his job. He doesn't like his job. He wishes that he could just kind of get out of everything. He wants to not be in that copy of a copy of a copy anymore. And he says that he has this quote about his life before. He lives in this like perfect IKEA house. Everything in his house is IKEA. He says, "You buy furniture, you tell yourself this is the last sofa you'll ever need in my life. Buy the sofa, then for a couple years you're satisfied that no matter what goes wrong, at least you've got your sofa issue handled. Then the right set of dishes, then the perfect bed, the drapes, the rug. Then you're trapped in your lovely nest, and the things that you used to own, they now own you." And Tyler, he wants to get out of this life. Subconsciously, he doesn't like that life anymore. He wishes that he could have an exciting life and he could actually feel alive. And Tyler is the way he does this. He reconstructs his memory, he reconstructs his identity so that he can do that. And so what ended up happening is in his sleep, the narrator, also Tyler, so he's in his sleep, so it's Tyler. Tyler ends up killing his boss, and he had always wanted out of that job. And Tyler gets it done, but the thing is that's not really the way he would have wanted to go about getting out of his job. And the next thing is he hates the consumerism in the world, and rather than just removing himself from the consumerism, Tyler tries to blow things up. He packs a building full of explosives, and he goes to the top and he says, "I'm going to blow it up." And at the top of the building, as I said before, Tyler has a gun in the narrator's mouth. But that's kind of complicated because Tyler and the narrator are the same thing. They're the same person. And so what that is he has his alter ego has a gun in his mouth. And that's kind of an inner struggle that destroys the narrator. It's an inner struggle of identity and memory. And his journey to be alive, it results in his death. But he's also reconstructing his memory and identity in a way that deals with his problems. And when he shoots himself in the head, he actually lives, but really he's dying. So the next question I dealt with was, what ideology does the text seem to promote? And it could be interpreted in one way as anti-consumerism. You can sympathize with Tyler, you can sympathize with everything he does. You can see the corruption that he's trying to bring down with the consumerism. You can see how the narrator's life is destroyed by all his IKEA furniture. But you could also see that consumerism kind of brings peace to the world. There's a lot less chaos in the beginning of the book because everyone's under kind of a spell of consumerism. And it's really a question of whether you would favor order and prosperity or freedom and chaos. And then his IKEA house blows up and his stuff owns him. And then he starts to feel alive. But then he also starts to kill everyone and blow everything up. And it's kind of a slippery slope between where you want order and where you want freedom. And so that's kind of like what the ideology I thought was that it's kind of the slippery slope. And that rebellion is dangerous, it's out of control, and his Project Mayhem gets out of control. At one point they tried to cut off his testicles because he's trying to shut down Project Mayhem. And really, that's kind of saying that Project Mayhem is a terrorist organization, because testicles and balls are like, you don't have the balls to do that, that's kind of symbolic of courage. And so they're going after that, they're kind of inducing fear. And so that's kind of like how it's kind of saying that consumerism is bad, but it's also highlighting the other extreme, where consumerism is good, social order is good. So the criticism that I thought was more useful for this was probably the postmodern criticism. I thought that the psychoanalytical, it was very useful for analyzing the book, but the postmodern with the identity and memory, I thought that that was really useful because that's really what the whole book is about. It's about Tyler and the narrator and how they interact, kind of. So I felt that using that, you were really able to uncover a lot of what the book means.